Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you're following along, then we've been working in a single file plugin script that utilizes that's run in Eclipse. So we're using ESAPI, and which is the Eclipse scripting API, and we've written a very simple script that will calculate a couple of the basic conformity indices that we use for plan evaluation. And so the goal of, so far we have a script that will calculate the R100 or a basic CI and the R50 and display that in a message box to the user. I think what I'd like to do is start to utilize a very simple UI that will allow the user to select the target and structure of interest that they want to use to calculate their CI from. So right now what we're doing is we're currently selecting the target volume, but there are instances where either perhaps you don't have that selected, which the script would then give you a message and then end. Or perhaps you have maybe you have multiple targets, so even though you have one selected, maybe it's not the one that you want to calculate, and you don't want to force the user to have to, in the script, make sure their normalization is selected properly so that it doesn't change, and then change their target and then run the script again, right? You don't want to have to, you want to think about the way that the user is going to use it. So there's nothing really that this will take away other than it will force the user to select it. However, we could automatically select it for the user, the plan target volume, and we can automatically select the body as the structure of interest. That way, all they have to do is click the button to calculate and not not have to select the items, right? So we can make it somewhat easier, easy for the user to use it without having to change a whole lot. But yeah, and we're going to do it in our single file plugin. So it's going to be a little more, if you're not familiar with using Windows in like WPF or something like that, then some of this might be new, but this is how you might see it. If you've used Eclipse, and you might have seen the DVH lookups script, and this is going to be very similar if you've ever looked at that script or at the code behind it. So this is going to be very simple because we don't really need this to be very complex. So we don't really need a full WPF application or something like that in order to get this running. So with that, we are going to, let's see, I've got the code pulled up. So the first thing is the last time that we updated this. So just to recap, we basically ran through and gave some examples of how we can abstract everything down. So we started with, I think it was around like 70 or so lines of code. So 318 to, yeah, so close to 100 lines, minus, give or take with the extra spacing and that sort of thing. But excuse me. So close to 100 lines, and we basically wrote that down to 1, or a few, because we have these checks up here. But then also something that gives the user a little, or not the user, but the anyone that would be reading through. Like you have a longer example here, where we're still abstracting everything down to, I think it was like 20, so 43 to, yeah, so about 25 lines of code. So, if this goes step by step basically, and it makes it really easy to read. And then all we did in order to write this line is we just took all of the code from this example and then put it into a single method. And then you have like a shorter example that we actually did, and this was pretty This is pretty straightforward and easy to follow as well. The only thing, the difference here was that it was a little more redundant and possibly, or more likely slower, because it's grabbing the external structure twice, and also the which is the body, and then also the target volume. So it's having to loop through the structure set twice for each of those, as opposed to defining a variable, which you could very easily do. That'd be 2 extra lines of code. It wouldn't, but the longer you get, the closer you get to the other. So, but yeah, and I guess technically though, you could consider this one line. So really, we say it's 75. We say it's 18 lines of code, but really, you could boil this down to one line, and then this one line. So this 4 lines is 8 lines, or 7 lines would be actually just 2 lines. So you could, say it's shorter than that. But anyway, so all right. So in Eclipse, they give us the option to use a window right here. So, and this is for a single file plugin, right? So they give us this again. If you're following along, you probably heard me say this, but single file plugins have to have this namespace. So essentially what Eclipse is doing is it's looking for this namespace, then this script, and then this execute method, okay? And then it will take, so I guess it would take one of 3 or whatever. So we've got this context, this window, and this environment, okay? And it doesn't have to have all 3 or whatever. So let's just uncomment this window out, okay? And that way we can use the window. Oh, the other thing I wanted to do, actually, let's actually push this. We basically just cleaned up the code. So we used method extraction to clean the code, and this is probably a good example of abstraction. We're making it simpler, right? So, all right, so let's commit that, and then we'll push, and fingers crossed it will work. All right, so we're good. Okay, all right. So now we have like a version that we could come back to, and let's, without making it too complicated, there's a couple of things that we need to change. So let's change this. Let's do this. Okay, so if you remember down here, we use this display conformity statistics. Okay, let's make a new one. That says, let's just copy this. Whoop. Oh, I can't. I've lost my keyboard. I might have to, something that's really strange. On occasion, when I push things, I lose the ability to do things in the, let's try closing this first and then just reopening it. Maybe that will do it. But in the past, I've just had to close this down and gone from there. So let's try it again. Yeah, okay, so that seemed to work. There we go, okay. So I guess you don't have to close it. Anyway, if you encounter that. Okay, so this is complaining because it's named the same, and it's not complaining because it's named the same. Well, it is in a way, but it's named the same and it takes in all of the same parameters. Like if we change this to string, it's no longer complaining, okay? So this is an example of, let's see, what is it? In object-oriented programming, you've got, so this is an example of polymorphism. At least that's what I'm, to my understanding. So it just means same name, multiple, different function or whatever. So we could name this the same, but it doesn't really make sense anymore because we're not displaying it, right? So, but what we could name it is get conformity statistics string. Maybe results string. Okay, and so now we're going to return a string. So we need to, this is instead of a void. Void means it's not going to return anything. So now we need to just say private static string. Okay, but now it's complaining because not all paths, not all code paths return a value. So in other words, we're not returning anything. So let's do, we already have the string format. So let's just say return. Whoops. All right, and then we'll just get rid of this because that's self-explanatory. And so now we're returning the string, okay? So now if we, let's copy that because it takes in the same things. And let's just change this. Now we could, you know, and actually we don't want to use this because we can still use this shortest example, right? But it wouldn't make sense to say calculate and display conformity statistics. So we could remake this, or we could just comment. Let's comment this out. And let's come back up here and use this example for now. And you can, you know, you could redo this in the other, but just for sake of time, let's do this, and let's say, you know, what you could do, the very simplest thing you could do is just say window dot content equals that. And let's see. Oh, I forgot I undid that. Okay. So now we have the window. So now we say the window dot content, okay, is this string. So if you were to run the script, you should just get, instead of a message box, you should get a window that pops up that has like a, you know, you can minimize, close, that sort of thing. It's probably not going to look right or anything, but yeah, so that's one example. Okay. So let's say, let's get rid of this because that was that doesn't really apply. That was like an example. So let's say, example of using the window content instead of message box. Okay, and let's see. You know, to be honest with you, I kind of, let's see. Would we use? We would probably, okay, yeah. So we're going to need to use some of these things. Yeah, so I don't think that we'll be able to, you know, we'd have to rewrite everything into here. So I'd rather rewrite it in up here. So this would be this. Let's add this down here. Okay. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is comment this out, okay? And we just want to get the results string, right? So, well, actually, yeah, because we need to, we're going to have a section for this, but, this might actually take some testing. Because I'm not used to binding, because we're not going to bind anything. So I think we're going to have to, yeah, we're going to have to add like a button. Man, this is actually going to be doing it without, you know, looking at it. And because with the WPF application, you can actually look at your XAML code, and you know, you can see your button and that sort of thing. But here we're kind of flying by the seat of our pants. So this is not. You know, not as straightforward. But anyway, so at some point I may have to pause and, you know, log in to Eclipse so that we can test it and see what our window looks like and that sort of thing. However, okay, so this is actually going to, eventually this is going to actually be in a button. So we're going to have a button that will say, get conformity statistics. Okay, so we actually, I think this whole function is going to be in a button. So instead of the window.content, then this would actually be like a text block or something like that. So let's think about our window for a little bit, and we'll combine this back in together or whatever. So let's come down here. Let me just unpin this so we get some more real estate. Okay. So let's do a region, the window logic. I don't know, something like that. Okay, so we need we're going to need something called a combo box to house the structures that we want. So we need to have two of them really. So we need to have, and there's other things we could do too, but a combo box is simple. So, it's pretty simple. So combo box, we're going to need two of them. Okay, so one for just the list of structures so that you can select a target, and then one for the list of structures that you can use as like a region of interest. Okay, so I think eventually what you would probably do is you would probably filter out the one with the region of interest by looking for like CI or R50 or body in like your structure ID. So that way, because like say for example you have two targets, right? So maybe you have two R50 structures, right? So you could name them, if you named them R50 underscore target name, then you would know, and anyone who's looking at your plan would know that that you probably use that structure to calculate the R50, right, for that target. And then just thinking about this is an Eclipse thing, but a lot of times what people will do is create a dose structure of whatever percentage that they want. However, because of the way that the coordinate systems are for the different structures, it can just be less accurate. If you have a really large structure, then it's going to be more of like a rounding issue. But if you have smaller structures, then you're going to miss some of that dose. So you could maybe, instead of creating the 50% isodose line, maybe you create the 10% or something like that. I usually will just create like a ring structure that just doesn't, it's not a ring. It's like it's just a structure with a margin on the target, and I just make sure that it includes all of the R50. But you could, certainly create a dose structure that's larger. Just know that there's some issues with the way that the coordinate systems are and stuff like that. So you just want to make sure whatever structure it is, you just want to make sure it includes all of whatever percentage. So anyway, so back to so we need a combo box for structures. And then, another thing you could do is if you only wanted to allow PTVs, you could just look for structures that have PTV in the name, right? So we could do that too. So combo box for PTVs, and then you would just need to change your code, change your filter or whatever. The simplest thing to do would just to allow them to use all their structures, right? And then that would be the simplest thing. But then, if you always label them PTV something, then you could look for just PTV in the name, or you could look for, structures that start with PTV. Okay. So let's see. Okay, so we need a combo box for the PTVs. We need a combo box for the structures of interest. And then we need a button to calculate, right? Because that's really the only things that we need. And then we need some sort of a text block. We needed like a text block or something, like a text box or something that, I think a text box you can edit, so we don't really want that. I think it's called a text block to show the results. Okay, so let's create this. So we're going to, I'm just going to use, for the sake of time, I'm going to use var. Okay, so var, let's see, structures, I don't want to, let's see, structures combo box, and I guess we could go ahead and just say PTV combo box equals new combo box, and it's gonna complain because we don't have this using statement. So I just hit control dot or period, control period, and it brought up this option. So we're gonna use that. Okay, and so let's see. So we could very easily. Whoa. Sometimes if you hit control paste too quickly, you get this. You actually wind up clicking that, which is what I did. And you could see when I hold down control, I get that under that where everything's underlined. So you just got to be careful that you don't do that. Okay, so that's a combo box. And then we could do the same thing. We could just go ahead and do the same thing for, I'm going to call this, I'll spell it out. Structures of interest combo box. And you can name these, whatever you want. I'm going to just name them, a little more clearly. PTV's combo box. And so a combo box has a couple of things that we'll use. It has the selected item, which is what we'll need in order to, that's what we'll pass in as the target, right? But then it has like the item source. Okay, so let's just give it so we have the structure set. Whoops. Do we have that uncommented? I forget. Yeah, okay, so we have this variable structure set up here. And so what we're going to do structures dot where, and we're going to do a where, so that way this is going to return a list. So if we hover over where, it says that it's going to return an IEnumerable, but that's fine. That's like a more basic thing. Like I think a list inherits from, at some point it inherits from an IEnumerable. I think I could be wrong, but it's basically just a basic form of a list. So where x.id starts with we'll just say PTV, okay? And to be more, so like for example, this would not catch lowercase PTV. So a lot of times what you might see is either too lower or too upper. And so what that does is it takes the string and it puts the whole thing into uppercase. And so that way, if a user, for whatever reason misspelled, or not misspelled, but they, maybe they have like a lowercase v on accident, or maybe the whole thing is just lowercase PTV. You're not relying on the user to put in what you want, right? So we're just going to say that it starts with the ID in uppercase starts with PTV, with uppercase PTV. I mean, we could do the same thing. We could say to lower, and then here, obviously that wouldn't match, so we would need that, okay? So I'm just going to use to upper. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing here, but this is going to be that, and we're just going to say, I think what, yeah, I think so. This is going to be a little longer of a statement though. So we're going to say where it does this, or, well, it wouldn't start with PTV. We'll say R50, or let's see, let's copy this. Let's say CI, and maybe we just always make sure we add an underscore, and then let's do, so that should cover those two, and then let's do DICOM type dot equals external, okay? And the DICOM types are always in caps, so at least as far as I remember. Like the three that they list there, PTV, marker, and organ, they're all in all caps. So this is what it should equal. Okay. All right, so this is going to return a list of structures that match these criteria. So they either start with R50 underscore, CI underscore, and like we could, so this is what you might use if you're just doing R100, right? You would need a smaller structure. So maybe you're not interested in an R50, right? And maybe you're only interested in the CI. So maybe you don't need as large of a structure, okay? You know, if you did that, then we might have to think about, selecting. So let's actually add that in. So just thinking about if you allow your user to only care about a CI, but if you are automatically calculating the R50, then obviously that value is not going to be very useful. So instead of calculating the R50 when they don't want the R50, or when it's not like an accurate calculation, then maybe what we should do is allow the user to select, right? So let's add in, let's do a combo box for calculation selection, okay? So let's do a new combo box. Let's do options. Let's do calculation options, and let's do calculation type options equals new. I actually saw this as well. Yeah, okay, so that doesn't work. All right, so I saw someone, and they did that for a list. I wasn't sure if they were just like, saying like new yada yada yada, or if they were actually saying that that this would actually work. But yeah, that doesn't work. But luckily the IntelliSense gives that to you. So you just hit, once you type new, that's the benefit of using this instead of var, right? If you use var, then you have to it doesn't know what you want, so you have to tell this. But if you put it here, then once you type new, then it will, in the IntelliSense, it will give you the rest. Okay, so all right, so calculation types dot items source equals, let's just create a new list of strings, new list string, we'll do, let's say both. And then let's say CI and R50. And I think I'll default it to the both, okay? And so we'll say, so when you if you don't declare the selected item to start, then what will happen is the it will just not be selected. So the selected index would actually be -1, I think, -1. So then you would, we would have to check. We would need to add a check to make sure that it's selected, right? Because you don't want to press the calculation button and it try to do something and then crash because the user didn't select something. So we're actually going to have to add in some checks to make sure that each of these has a selected value, okay? So let's see, we need, so we can add this selected item, dot selected item equals, I guess both. Or let's see. I think that works. I can't remember. I don't think we need to go into the item source and say first. I mean, maybe we could. It should do the same. It should be the same. But let's, just in case, let's do calculation type options dot items dot first. Nope. Items source dot. Nope. Maybe to list. No, can't do that. Let's see. No, can't do that either. Okay. Alright, so I guess that's the way that we'll do it. Alright. Okay, so perhaps if we made a list like called options, so, and then we said, maybe we could do that. What if we did var options equals this? And then we can like be more explicit. So then we'll say options, and then we'll say options dot first. Okay. All right. So we know that, and the reason we don't have to say first or default is because we know that there's an option there, right? If we said first and there was no, this was an empty list, then this would return null. Or this would actually, I think it would throw an error. But the first or default would not throw an error because it would just select it as null. All right, so let's see. So we've got this combo, and let's see, we could go ahead and let's do the structures. So structures of interest dot selected. Let's go ahead and do the selected item equals, and let's copy this, and instead of where, we're going to say first or default. We'll just go ahead and say that. We really don't have to, because we know that there's dose, we know that there's a structure set. In order to have dose, there has to be a body or a structure that has the daemon type external. So I think we would be fine to just say first But if you wanted to, just, you know, because you could absolutely say first or default. And maybe there's another reason that we should, and I'm just not thinking of it. So we're going to add a comment, set the selected structure of interest to the body structure. Okay. Let's add this, set the items source as structures with R50, CI, and the body. Okay, and then we're going to do set the item source as structures that start with PTV. Okay. Let's see. All right. Selected item as both. And let's do set item source as options. We'll say options for calculation. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so we've got a combo box for the PTVs, a combo box for the structures of interest, and a combo box for the calculation type options. Okay, so now we need a button. So, button, let's try that. Calculate button equals new button. And let's say calculate button dot content. Oh. Alright, dot content equals, and this is going to be, this is just going to be a string. So this is going to be, well, it could be, it doesn't have to be a string, it could be, you know, other things too, but we won't get into that. Basically, you just need something, we're just going to add in the words. So we'll say calculate conformity statistics. Okay, and we could add in like a width. So we could say calculation button dot width equals, let's say 200. And, you know, maybe that's too, if we don't do this, then it will just be automatic, I think. So what we could do is, instead of adding that, let's add in, let's give it a margin or like a padding. So that way it will be, let's give it a padding of like, say 10. So that it'll, oh, you know what? It actually needs a new thickness of 10. It's kind of weird. So, which I'm glad that I actually did this, because this can get really frustrating when you can't figure out what it is. But if you are, you know, if you're getting used to hovering over things, you can hover over it, right? Because when we put just 10, it was complaining. So you just hover over it, look at what it needs, and then a thickness. You're like, okay, well, how do I create a thickness? Well, the thing I usually, like if I hover over it, I'll usually just type new and see if that's an option. And then if it's not, like, because sometimes it's not. Sometimes you have to create something else. And then at that point, you just Google it, right? Okay, so this is the button content, what it says. In the button. And then this is a little padding. All right. So, and then you could also, we can get rid of this too. But if you wanted to change like the margin or the padding or, whatever, then you absolutely could. Okay. So then we also need, and I've got to pause this for a little bit. So what we need to do is we need to add in a click event. And so we're just going to say click. And let's use this. So let's just do I think we'll just do an event handler. Well, I guess this is just the name. So equals, actually I think we need a plus equals. Yeah, so this button, what this plus equals does is it, we don't need to do that. What this does is it subscribes to this event, okay? So then anytime this event fires, or anytime this button's clicked, it fires this event, okay? All right, so I need to pause the video for a little bit, and I'll be back in just a little bit. Thanks. Okay, so sorry about that. I had to take a pause. Not that you really were aware, but before we continue with this button, I was skimming through a couple of things, and I wanted to add a couple of notes. So we never added a summary to this, and I also didn't like. I noticed that I had said statistics results. Maybe that's proper English, I don't know, but I'm going to say statistics result string. And then we'll have to change that up there, but actually let's see, will it give us the option? Yeah, okay, so we can rename it there. All right, so let's see, we need to add this. So this is going to I always want to say that. Gets the conformity statistics result string. And returns a string. I never really know what to put here. Sometimes I put even this, returns the conformity and statistics result in the form of a string or something like that. So I'm just going to leave that. All right. Let's see. Okay. And then I think I want to rename this button, because now that I'm thinking about it, it's a calculate button, but when we're thinking about naming things, what is it calculating, right? So, and even my comment was button to calculate. So what is it calculating? So calculate conformity stats. We'll just say that, and we'll say the calculate conformity statistics button, and we'll just highlight over this, click it, and then select rename, and that should rename everything for us. So renaming things isn't really that bad. Okay. All right. So we have our button, and we've subscribed to this event, and I think I want to. I'm gonna delete this event so that we can rename this. We could have just renamed it, but this is just easier. Let's see. So I just hit tab and click apply. So now it's calculate conformity statistics button. Click. So it's the click event for this button. And so now it's created it down here. And so we'll say initiates the calculation of initiates the calculation of the R100 and, well, we'll just say conformity stats conformity statistics and presents it to the user. We'll say populates the results in the window. Okay. So because this, what this is going to do, yeah, so we're going to set all of these values. So let's see. Oh, I think we're going to need some private fields now. Sorry, my computer's freezing up a little bit. It does that on occasion. So I think what we might need is for these to be, well, actually, you know what? Yeah, I think we're going to need these to be private fields that are created outside of the execute method. So let's work through the thought process here. First, we can get rid of that. Okay, so oh, and we need to create our text block. So we'll say text block. Let's call this okay, so we have this text block, and what do we want to name it? So this is going to be the we'll call it the results text block. Okay, it's going to be I guess we need to call this a new text block, and then let's actually let's create a couple of them. Well, nah, we'll just leave it at that. Okay, and then, yeah, so we'll leave it at that. And so we're going to say, let's see. Gosh, I really don't know. I think we're going to have to create, instead of having these inside of here, I think we're going to have to create them outside. So, I think that makes sense because, and you know, I mean, we can test this too, but I just don't think that we can, like, I don't think that we can come down into here and say, you know, the results. I wonder, we don't have access to the window. So maybe, okay, anyway, let's keep going at this, and then we'll figure, because changing this over won't be that difficult. But, okay, so we have results text block, and we want the, so for the text block, what we have is the text property, okay? And we'll say, I don't know, we'll just say results, right? And then we can also say things like, because it's a text block, right? So we have things like, let's see, font size, foreground, which is like your font color, height. I guess you also have like font family. So like you could set it to, like if you like maybe Calibri, or if you like Times New Roman or whatever. And actually, I think this actually, you have to create a new font family. And then in here you put your string. So Calibri. And yeah, so we could say that, right? We could also say, I think we could actually say that to the window. So that way everything would be That makes probably more sense, right? So down here, let's set some of the window properties. So we'll say window dot font family equals, actually, I think we copied that. We could say window dot font size equals, I don't think this is a thickness. I think this is like just an int. And we can, if we hover over it, we can look. Oh, it's a double. Okay. So I guess you could have like a half, I guess. Let's see. There's this other property, so startup location, which is, actually we need to do window startup location equals, actually it's a type, window startup location dot center. Let's do center. Let's see. Based on this, it doesn't tell us what the difference between center screen and center owner. Center screen, I'm guessing, is the center screen is probably the primary screen, maybe. Center owner. Oh no, I guess center owner would be like if you, like maybe you don't have your window maximized, right? So then probably the Eclipse window, like if you have it smaller, or maybe so I'm guessing that would be center owner because so we'll just say center screen. But that's something you can just kind of play around with. Okay, so today is the day of distractions. I've had to pause and start and stop and pause so many times. Anyway, okay, so where were we? We have the window startup location, the center screen, and okay, so we've got our stuff here, and we've wired this up, and essentially what we want is we want this stuff to happen. But the thing is, we don't want it to get the patient, the plan, and all that stuff every single time that it, every single time that it, what am I trying to say? Every single time that we click the button, we don't want to calculate all these things. We only want to, basically, we want to get the target. So we want to select the target, and then we want to, we won't need to validate it because we know that they've selected. Oh, that's actually another thing. I was looking at what we want is we don't want the structures. I mean, we could do this, but ultimately what we want is we want to select the, let's see, we want to select X, not S byte, X dot, ID. We just want the IDs. And then we want to do the same thing. Let's see. We'll say, so it's the first, so that returns a structure. So we just want the ID of that. And then we want to do the same thing that we did here, up here, okay? Now, like when we're doing a WPF application, we're using like binding and that sort of thing, and we could bind to a list of structures, and we might be able to do it here, but this is, for the sake of time, at least for my knowledge, this is going to be the easiest thing to do. Okay, so the button, yeah, I really think we're going to have to create like fields that are available outside of this execute method. So that kind of stinks. So, okay, so let's go up here. I mean, it doesn't stink, but, so we're going to need some private variables. And so we're going to, we're going to need a patient, a plan, structure set, a target. Instead of the body, we'll call it the structure of interest. And yeah, so let's do, basically we just need all these variables. So let's do, let's do a private patient, and all we're going to do is initialize them. So we'll say, I mean, you don't really have to write a note here, but we're going to initialize private variables for use throughout class. Okay, so in other words, they're inside this script class, and we want to be able to access this patient in all of our methods, right? Because this is ultimately just a method similar to what we're writing here, right? Like they're both YOLO, they both take in things, and it's just when Eclipse runs the script, they're going to look. This is the method that's going to be run, and inside this method is where we call all these other methods, right? So you could call these, you know, helper methods, whoop, right? Or, you know, whatever you want, right? So like if we wanted to put this in our different region, right? Okay, so we have the context. We don't need to do that. We won't need access to the context inside. Now, you know, we could. No, we don't, because we don't want to declare all of these things multiple times. We just want to do some of these things like once, right? Okay, so we got the patient. Let's do a plan. We'll do a private plan setup. And when I like to name my private variables with an underscore in front, but I have seen a lot of people just use like a lowercase first letter. And then for public variables, usually you'll name them with a capital letter with and without the. So like if you had a public field for this private, what you might hear people call as a backing field, then the public patient would be just capital P patient. So patient with a capital P. Okay, so anyway, so we got the plan. We need the structure set. So let's do private structure set. Structure set. It will name it for us. And then it wouldn't let us name it structure set because it added a 1, and that's because there was 1 here. Okay, so then we need a private structure target structure, and then we need a private structure of interest. And this could be confusing. Like you might think that, oh, that's the structure that we're interested in, so maybe that's the target. But the reason I named it structure of interest is because similar to volume of interest or region of interest, right? So ROI or VOI, right? So when we're thinking about dosimetry treatment planning, we think of things like VOI and ROI. So this is why I named it structure of interest, because it's technically a structure, right? It's not a box. It's not I mean, I guess we could say volume of interest. That would make sense. But it is a structure, so I named it a structure. Anyway, moving on. I digress. Okay, so we got the structure set, the target. We won't need to validate it because the user's going to select it. So we're actually not going to need this. So not needed when, well, actually, okay. So it actually depends. So we would be validating whether or not it's null, right? And so it depends on whether or not you initially select a structure for the user when the script starts. So when you have a combo box, when you first open it, the selection is blank, okay? So the selected index is -1. So because the first object, remember we're talking about like a 0 index. So I can't spell. Well, really I can't type. But anyway, with a combo box, the first position, like the first item in the list, has an index of 0. So when there's nothing selected, the index is -1. So that would be how we would validate. So we should say not needed when, or we'll say if a structure is automatically selected at script startup. And just for sake of, if you're, you probably have plenty of space because you're probably not, on 200%, right? Just so that you can see it on the screen. Okay, so this wouldn't be needed. So we could leave this here just in case, but I plan to automatically select the planned target volume. It's actually interesting because if there's not one selected, then it would be null. I think I'll add in logic to say either try selecting the planned target volume. And then if it's null, select the first one. Maybe we won't select a target, so then we would need to validate it because, ultimately that could be null. So, well, we could just do a simple if statement, right? Because we could do a string is, well, okay, yeah, so we'll probably still select it. Well, because, ultimately, like really though, and, this is where like the whole like debugging and making your script robust comes in, right? Like we could very easily just write this to where it will work under very specific circumstances. But the goal, we don't want to write scripts that crash just randomly, right? So we want to try to think of all the different cases. And that's the difficult part of scripting is trying to think of all the different scenarios, right? And this is why you need people to test your scripts and that sort of thing so that it doesn't just crash randomly. Because, other people will use your script and then they'll see things or they'll experience things that you haven't. It's the weirdest thing, but it happens every time. Okay, so anyway, so what would happen if there's not any structures that have a PTV, right? So we would actually need to validate this. So, and I was also thinking about, when we were in the previous script or previous video, we went through this whole process of like abstracting everything down, right? We're going to need to do the same thing, right? So we need to extract this method. And see, that's so frustrating to me that it doesn't. Number one, I don't understand why this keeps popping up. It's very, very frustrating. But why didn't it do this item source? Like I want this to return something. So it's kind of, let's see. See, it's just going to be a method where it takes that. But see, I don't know. I don't like that. So anyway, I think what I'll do is I'll just cut this. Okay, so back to where we were. Let's. I'm a little. I get sidetracked sometimes, so you'll have to bear with me. Okay, so we've got our. Okay, so now we need our body, or okay, so we've got our structure of interest. That's what the body will be, and then we can go ahead and calculate the R50. Or we'll create those two. So we'll say private. Oh, fingers were in the wrong spot. Private. I have a. Okay, so double. Let's see. R50, and we'll just copy and paste this, and do R100. Okay, so there we go. We've got that. And I think we're going to need access to, well, yeah, we're going to need access to all these things too. So let's do this. Let's delete this, and let's generate a field, private combo box. So that will generate it for us. So that's good. So, and then we'll go up, and so what I've done is I've deleted that first line, and I've hit control period or control dot, and it's giving me the option to create these for me. So that's fantastic. So I deleted that, control period, and then select that. I don't think we need this. There's no real reason. Now we could, it would probably make more sense to maybe even initiate this up here. No, you can't do that. You can't do that outside of that. So never mind. Let's just say options, and we'll just go ahead and create this. Okay, and if you, I don't know if you noticed, but they went from blue to white. So that tells you that it's a field inside this class. Okay. All right, so let's do the same thing. So you can see this is blue, right? And let's delete that. Control period, hit enter. So that's going to add in that. And let's do this. Okay. And the window is in this method, so that should be good. And then we could say, well, we'll actually have to add all these things to the, so we're actually going to need some stack panels and that sort of thing. But anything that we need access to outside, so, okay, so just as an example, so now because we've done all those things, we can actually access patient. See how the IntelliSense picks it up? So we could, you know, say new patient. I mean, we couldn't actually do this because VMS doesn't, the scripting thing doesn't, it doesn't allow that. So you see it, yeah, like it says that it won't do it without arguments, but it doesn't tell you what they are. So that's just not allowed or whatever. Okay, so now we have our variables. Let's go up here, and just because I'm going to add a underscore in front of each one, just to tell me that, whoops, just to tell me that it is, whoa. Okay, just to tell me that it's a private variable. Okay, rename. 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 Renamed. Okay. All right. So these are all renamed, and you can see these are sort of grayed out, and these are have that deeper white color, and that's because they're being used inside the script. As we use these, then it will, you know. So okay. So now we need to change this to patient plan. Structure set. We'll change this, and let's see. Plan does not exist. Oh, we named it plan setup. Let's just call it plan. Okay, so now that will go away, and we need to fix this. So now, right now, we're just following all the red squigglies where it's complaining. Okay, and we didn't call this body. We called this structure of interest. Okay, and so we're actually not even going to use this. This is actually going to be determined by on the button click, right? Because we want to know what the selected we want to know what the TBD, I'll write it out, to be determined by the after button click. Okay. So we could probably move this down into that. So the var target. So this is also going to be added, taken away, and added to the button click event, and so are these, right? So let's just comment all that out. Eventually, we'll come back through and we'll clear all that out. Okay. So what we need. Okay. So all of this is actually going to. Okay. So first, we need to populate our combos. Okay. So our combo boxes, we need to populate them with the various list structures, okay? And then let's add some methods to validate this, and then, well, actually, we need to do that during the button click. So we don't need to do it in here. We want to do it during, like, after the button's been clicked. We want to make sure that they've been they've been selected, right? We want to make sure we have all the information that we need in order to calculate everything before we start to try to calculate everything. Okay, so we've selected an item. Okay, so we know that there's a body, so we know that there should be a default for that. And we never actually selected the. Let's do. Okay, let's add the PTV's combo box selected item. So we're going to say is string dot is null or empty, and we're going to do plan dot target volume ID. So if it's null or it's empty, then that means there's not a target volume selected, right, in the plan. So if that is, we want to say if it is true, then we want to we actually need to validate this first. So let's extract this. Let's actually just cut it. Oops. I think I just lost the keyboard. There we go. And let's come down here and let's add in add some space there. Okay, so let's do a private. Well, we're gonna say list string. Is it? Yeah, I think that'll work. Private list of type string. And we're gonna call this. What did we call this? Oh. Let's see what it is. PTV. So okay, so we're gonna say get PTVs. Get PTV IDs. And it's going to, we're going to take in a structure set, okay? So we're going to say structure set, and it just gave me that. Shift enter, put me into this. And this is complaining because not all code paths return a value, okay? So as soon as we say return, whatever. So we want to return, okay, so I am going to pass this in, but we actually don't have to because we created this private field that's outside of the execute method. So in other words, we could actually we could say structure set, right? Because it's a field in this class, this script class. But instead of that, I want to use the one that we're passing in. Return, we want to say structure set dot structures. Actually, we actually wrote this already. So let's just, no, not that. Not that. Oh shoot, I think we, do we still have it? Yeah, okay, good. So now let's do this. and we need to, so this is complaining probably because it's not technically a list. So this select returns an I enumerable. So we could say like, there's a way that you can create like an enumerable list or whatever, but we'll just say to list to make it into a list, and that satisfies that. Okay, so we've got the structure set.structures where the ID of each structure equals, or actually starts with PTV. Okay, so this is important because this only works if you name your PTVs the same way, right? That they say like PTV1, PTV2, or PTV 5000 or PTV underscore 50, or whatever. However it is, as long as it's consistent. So you could edit, you could change this. Obviously, you want to change this to whatever your method is. So like if you name things differently, then you would want to use your filter, right? So this is just an example or whatever. So now what we want to do, so we want to say the item source is get PTV IDs, and we're going to pass in the structure set. Okay. Okay, so that will be good. And so what we want to know is, so if so we want to validate this. So maybe we should, well, we could just add it. Let's see, let's do, okay, let's actually create a method for setting. So let's do, so we've got the get PTVs, and let's do a private void, because we're not going to return anything. We're going to say set selected PTV. Selected PTV item. I don't know. And we don't need anything there. I forgot to do shift enter, but we are going to, we're going to run through our logic here. We're going to say validate and set selected PTV item. So maybe we should split this up. I don't know. We'll just do it in one. It doesn't really matter because we're trying to do this. I say we're trying to do this quickly, but clearly this is not going very quickly. Okay, so we want to know if, wrong thing. So if the, let's see. So we want, okay, so then let's create another thing here. Let's do a private list string. Let's see, we need, what are we doing? Private list string. We want PTVs. And then let's do another one for, because we know we're going to need, what did we call those? Structures of interest. Okay, is that what we called those? Yeah, the structures of interest combo box. Okay. And so structures of interest, really it's like IDs. So we could say PTV IDs, structure of interest IDs. Okay, and then let's create, so in our code, so before we get here, let's actually, up here, let's do, let's see, what is this? PTV IDs equals get PTV IDs, right? And we'll pass in the structure set. Structure set. Okay. And then let's do the same thing, but let's do PTV, what do we want? Structure of interest IDs, and we want to call this get structure of interest IDs, and we'll do the same thing. Now notice this is complaining, right? Because we've never actually written this. So that we have the option to rename, but we want to generate a new one. Okay, so now let's come down here, and we are going to just copy, let's see, this, right? Here, and we are going to return this, but we don't have that, and we need to .toList, right? Okay, so this is the same thing that we did up here, but we've replaced it with this. Okay, so now we have a list of PTV IDs and a list of structure of interest IDs. Okay, and those are just lists of strings. And so now let's do a validate each of those. So let's say validate PTV list. Okay, because there needs to be, in order to use the script, we have to have a target, right? And we also have to have which will always have a structure of interest, because we'll always include the body, right? So the DICOM type external. So this will always return at least one if there's dose, right? Which we've already established probably more times than you care to know, that you need, in order to have dose, you have to have a body or like a structure that has a DICOM type external, at least in Eclipse. That's unique to Eclipse or whatever. So let's steal, because let's see. Let's look at how did we do this? I want to do this a similar way, right? So I'm just going to paste this here, and obviously we need to change it. So if PTV list PTV IDs let's see, dot count equals 0, right? Then please, let's just say sorry, it appears you don't have any target volumes. We'll say any structures that begin with PTV or PTV. Okay, we'll just say PTV. Okay, so that's validate PTV list. And, we could, while we're at it, we might as well go ahead and do validate what is it? Validate structure of interest list, and we'll say basically the same thing. Structure of interest IDs dot count is 0. Sorry, it doesn't, it appears you don't have, and this, like I said, this should never happen, but we might as well add it just in case. Because like you don't want to, if we see this message, let's say have a body or external or structures that begin with, gosh, I can't type with this keyboard, with CI or R50 underscore. Okay. Okay. So now when we create these, let's go ahead and validate them, right? And so let's do validate PTV list, and let's validate structure of interest list. Okay. And we'll go through and add comments later once we clean this up. Let's just get through this logic. And really it is good to get in the habit of doing it up front. That way, if you like earlier, I had to come through and like fix some things because I didn't do it right away. So let's just go ahead. So get the list of structures that start with, well, we'll just say get the list of PTV IDs. Make sure there's at least one. Okay. Get the body and other structures and other structures of interest. We'll say other possible structures of interest. And we'll say make sure there's at least one structure of interest. There should always be a body / external when there's dose. Okay. All right. So now we have gotten the patient, we've gotten the plan, the structure set, we've gotten a list of the PTV IDs. We have validated that list to make sure that there's at least one. We've gotten the structures of interest and like the possible structures of interest. We've gotten and then we validated to make sure there's at least one, which there, like we said, there should be. Okay, so now let's see, structures of interest, combo box. So we don't need to do this here, right? So what we will do is assign this as structure of interest IDs. We've already validated that, so that's good. And we're going to do the same thing here. We've already validated the PTV IDs, so we're just going to say that. Okay, and it's complaining because I don't have I didn't delete that whole if statement. Okay, so we've already validated those things, so we've initiated the combo box, and which we would need to do. Excuse me. Saying that up here, saying that this is a combo box is not the same as declaring. Like you're not initiating it. I don't know if initiating is the actual like proper term, but that's how I always think of it. So we've instantiated it, like we've created an instance of it, or maybe this is an issue. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But you've got it up here. This doesn't actually mean that it is created yet. It just means that an instance of it is like saved in memory, I guess. I don't know. So we want to initialize it. Yeah, so this says object initialization. Oh, can be simplified. Interesting. Let's look at that. Oh. Oh, interesting. Okay. So let's change that. Oh, what did we do? Oh, okay. So instead of, okay, because this is an object, interesting. So obviously item source and selected item, these are properties of this combo box, right? So that makes perfect sense. And this will, so we haven't really done this a whole lot yet because we haven't created really our own classes. But eventually we'll create our own classes, and when you initialize an object, so this is an object, then you can, instead of closing it off and then accessing like the dot properties, so like naming like structure of interest combo box dot, item source, and then dot selected item, you can just, in brackets, you can initialize them up front. So since we know what we're going to give them, then we can just do that. And you notice they put a comma here instead of the semicolon. Okay, so when you're initializing the object, the semicolon actually goes outside of that. So if you're new to this, then this will look completely different. So, but this is a simplified version of that. And we'll just do the same thing here. So I did control dot, and then I just hit enter to simplify that. So, okay, so now we've got our combo box, and we've set the item source. Now we haven't set the selected source. So let's see, we came down here and we started to do that. What did we do? Did we do anything? I feel like we started to type that. I know I typed set at one point. Set PTV, no. Selected, no. Okay. I'm going to assume that I haven't done it. So let's do the selected item. We might have to, it might be easier to do, well, we've already validated it. So what we could do is, okay, so let's do this. So this might be, hopefully this will work. So let's do selected, no, not index, item equals, and we're going to do, I don't know if this is going to work, but we're going to try it. So we're going to test if the plan dot target volume ID, so let's say, let's do string dot is null or empty. And so if it equals, hold on one second, I'm getting a phone call. All right, so sorry about that phone call. Today is the day of distractions. Anyway, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put a truth, like a test, in this one line. So we're going to say string dot is null or empty this plan dot target volume ID. If now we could, this returns a bool, okay? So like it says bool, right? So it returns a bool. But so we could say, okay, well, so if it returns true, then we can just, like, we can simplify this, right? Or we can be more explicit and say if it equals true. That way, whoever's reading it, like for example, this one is probably not the best example because like this is very straightforward. Like it either is it null or empty, right? So it returns true if it's null or empty. But then sometimes, like, and this is a very, like this is just a string, but sometimes you don't know what the variable is that you're passing into something, like into a test. So like sometimes the variable is more complicated in and of itself. So, and it just may not be as straightforward. So this is a very straightforward test. So there's really nothing wrong with, not saying is it true, because it's easy to read. But there are times where you're not really sure what the test is going to return. So sometimes it's better to write more explicitly what you're expecting it to be, right? So we'll just skip this for now, right? So this is a test, and so then you follow that with a question mark, and then you give it two results. So one result if it's true, that's the first, and then another result if it's false. So if it is null or empty, that means that the planned target volume is not selected. So then we don't know what target it is. So we're just going to say PTV IDs dot first. Okay, and gosh, and we could say first or default. We don't want to say first or default. Well, I mean we could, but we don't really want to pass in the null value into this. Okay, so we want to say the first one because, and the reason that we can do that is because we've already tested this PTV list, and if you remember, oh, did we not add a? Oh goodness, we need to go down and add a note for that. So let's do that. Okay, so let's do this one. So get PTV IDs, returns, and I thought we did this. So gets a list of structures that begin with PTV. And then we'll say case insensitive. So it's not sensitive. It's not sensitive. Gosh, good grief even. It's not sensitive to whatever case that PTV is spelled. So it could be, you know, and the reason for that is because we convert it to an uppercase string, and then we test it. Okay. So it gets a list of structures that begin with PTV, okay, and then let's do validate, let's see, validates whether the list of PTVs, and you know, maybe we should actually pass in this test, because if we are passing the list, let's do list string PTV IDs, and then we could say PTV IDs, and then let's finish this. So it validates whether the list of PTVs, and this will, I don't know, it's just a little more clear, right? When we, you know, because when we see it up here and there's nothing passed into it, like, yeah, I mean, it makes sense, but everything else that we've tested up here, there's something that's passed in, right? So then we know that it's from the current context, right? So like we could say PTV list, but it doesn't necessarily have to be this PTV list, this list of PTV. It could be something else, right? But if we pass in that list, like, then we can just assume, like, it's a little more discrete, like it's a little more like clear that that's what it's testing. So let's pass in PTV IDs, right? Okay, so let's see, where were we? Okay, so we're adding in that comment or that note. So validates whether the list of PTVs contains at least one PTV, right? Or at least one target, right? Well, we'll set PTV. Okay. Okay, and let's add in a para tag for a new line. So it's going to skip a line and then add this text. So let's say will end the script if there are no structures that begin. We'll just say in the script if the list is empty. Okay, so that way we'll know, like, okay, this is actually going to terminate our script, right? And you know, we may have to test this because now that we're using a window, I can't remember if return will end. I think it will. I think it will escape. Will kind of get out of the window dialog. We may have to say something like window.close. I'm really not sure. We'll have to test that. I think we'll be okay. But okay, so where were we? Oh yeah, we were adding these notes. So let's do this one, and let's do the same thing. And let's do list string structure of interest list IDs. Okay, all right, and then so validates. Let's actually copy this. Well, we'll copy this one. Well, in the script, if the list is empty, validates whether there is a structure of DICOM type external, or other possible structures of interest. Okay. Okay. And if we wanted to, we could add a line that says, you know, that sort of defines like what we're defining a structure of interest is, right? I don't think that's really that necessary. Let's get rid of that. Okay. So, okay, so what is this structure of interest IDs? Oh, okay. Get PTV IDs. Okay. Okay, let's add in this. And we'll say gets a list of structures that begin gets a list of structures that begin with CI or R50 or R DICOM type external. Okay, it's a list of structures that begin with CI underscore or R50 underscore or are of DICOM type external. Okay, I think that makes sense. Okay. Okay, so let's go back up to here and figure out where we're at. Okay, so we need to pass in the structure of interest IDs. Okay, so now we validated those, and then what's the next thing? Okay. Oh, okay, so now, okay, this is where we were. So, and what I was saying is that, let's see, PTV IDs, what was I saying? Set item sources structure that starts with, that's what we do this. Okay, so that's what we're doing there. And then set the selected item as the plan target volume ID or the first target in the list. Okay, so we're going to say, so if it's null, then we're going to give it the first one, right? And I think what we were doing is we were looking up here to say, okay, what is this? This gets a list of structures that begin with PTV, and it's case insensitive. And if you remember, the target volume ID may or may not be null. So we're testing if it's null. If it is null, then we're just going to select the first target. If it's not null, then you give this colon, not a semicolon, but a colon, and then this is your false response. So if that test is false, then we're going to give this. So if it's not null, that means that it's selected. So then we're going to say we just want it to equal the, I think we could just say, hold on one second. Well, that was quite the, what do you call it? Gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Well, so I got a phone call, and so, okay, distraction, quite the distraction. So some time has passed throughout the day, throughout the evening. We had my son's bath time, had to cook dinner, etc. So anyway, we're back at it. Okay, so like I was saying, when you provided a test, then you have your question mark, and then the first value is your truth value, or the response if it's true, and then the second is the false value. So we have the PTV IDs dot first if it's null, and then if it's not null, then we actually want to give it the target volume ID. Okay. And it doesn't like the semicolon because we're inside the object, this object's fields. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. All right, so okay, so we have our PTVs combo box. We're defining that, and then we have our structures of interest, and we're gonna assume that the value will be, or the selected item will be the body structure. And then if they want to change that, so then we need to come up with this thing. So let's do the same thing. Let's see if we can simplify this. Doesn't look like it because we are separating this. Let's put this here, and then let's try this again. Okay, so it says it can be simplified, so that's good. Okay, all right, so I think I don't see any real reason to put this into a variable. So let's just put this here. Let's see if we can, so Control KD to try to fix the spacing, and for some reason it doesn't. Can I do that? That's weird. For some reason it's not letting. Oh, it's because of this. That's why. So let's undo both of those and just to test. So if we get rid of this, well, we can do this anywhere, but Control KD. Huh, that's interesting. It's not fixing this. I would have thought that would do that. It doesn't seem to be complaining though, so let's just leave it at that. And then we can get rid of this. Okay, and oh, that's right. That's why we did that. I forgot that. Okay, let's not do that then. I forgot that it was in order to set this. Okay, so which, honestly, we could do index. We could do selected index would be 0, which would be whatever the first, which in our case is both. So really we could do that, but this makes sense. So I guess we'll just leave that. Okay, so we have that, but I do want to simplify this. So, whoops, Control dot, can be simplified, yes. And then let's do the same thing here. Control dot, can be simplified, yes. Okay, and then I'm kind of surprised at this. Let's see if there's a click inside of here. Oh no, let's just click mode. But actually that reminds me of one though, cursor. So we can change the cursor to be, let's see what the options are. I wonder, does it just take a string? Cursor, frame element, cursor. Let's try new. Cursor. And then does this take a string? Maybe hand? It says cursor file. My guess is it's the hand, because that's what I would put in the XAML code. So this will, you know, like, okay, so like I'm hovering over this text field, right? So we see this I, which I don't know how well you can see it. It's kind of black. On my screen, it's so weird. On my screen, it's red. But when I come over here, you see the pointer, right? So when you click, when we're hovering over the window, all we're going to see is the pointer, okay? Unless we find like a text field potentially. But then when we see a button, we want to provide some sort of feedback to, whoops, it's not like that. Okay. So we want to provide some sort of feedback to the user to show that, you know, there's something going on. And there's a variety of things that you can do, like you can change the background, right? You can change the cursor, like what we're going to do. So we're going to try to change it to a hand. But like I said, you could change the background color. You could give it an outline. You could do a combination. So I'm sure, like when you go to a website, I'm sure you've seen tons of different styles of buttons, right? So that's something that you can think about. And we'll have to test this just to see if it even works. Okay, so now we have this click event, and we've subscribed to this. That's what this plus equals is. We're subscribing to it. And then if you wanted to unsubscribe to it, it would just be a minus equals. So sometimes you might see where, like, once you've done something, then you might want to unsubscribe from it. You know, whatever. Okay, so we've subscribed to the event, and now what we want to do is we need to, oh, I forgot, we have this, let's see, we can probably simplify that, which is good. Okay, and let's see. Basically, eventually this text is going to be what we put in the other. What was that method that we had? It was display something, right? So display conformity statistics, but it wasn't display. It was get conformity results string, right? So we could potentially use this. We'll have to play with it to figure out, like we'll have to test it to figure out if this formatting even looks okay, to see like what you know, all this looks like. I mean, we don't really need to display the patient ID, right, in the results. Probably what could be even better would be to actually keep a list, right? So what if we just put it, we could put it into a table. That's a lot more straightforward when we can see what the UI elements are looking like. But it would be a, what is it called? Something grid, a data grid. And then you bind to the element. I'm honestly not sure. I mean, I guess you could technically add it from the code behind on the button click. I guess you could do that. But we won't. We're not going to worry about that. All we're going to do is we are going to do like a plus equals. So that way we get like a new line, and we'll provide like the structure name and then like the CI and the R50, like something basic, right? And then we can customize this and build it out to be more complex or, you know, pretty or whatever. Okay, so now let's go down to so we have all of our stuff that we need. So now let's go down to the button click. Oh, you know what? Actually, what we need to do is do we need to create some stack panels. Okay, so let's see. Let's think about like the structure that we want, right? Okay, so let's move the window stuff down a little bit. And the stack panels we don't really need access to, because we don't really need to add anything. Now, if we wanted to make it more complex, then we could, you know, we could change the visibility of, say, like the results section. So maybe the results section is hidden until, you know, you actually click the button and something is tested, right? But maybe we're just not worried about that. Okay, so let's actually just leave text as blank. That way, well, let's just say like statistics. Okay, and let's just give it a new line. Okay. Okay, so as of now, like the way that all of this stuff just gets stacked up is not, there's no like structure to it. So it actually might all just be stacked on top of each other. So what we want is we need to create some sort of a layout or whatever. So we're just going to use stack panels. And what happens is you create a stack panel, and the stack panel has two different orientations. You can lay out your stuff horizontally, or you can stack things that are inside of your stack panel vertically. So like if you say you had a horizontal stack panel, then maybe you had a label and then a value, right? And then if you have it horizontally, then if you have it vertically, then that's kind of we're actually going to use both. But it's just a way to lay out your stuff. So let's say we have a stack panel. Let's call this main stack. Let's just call it main SP we'll add SP at the end for, or the other thing, I think I've seen other people do things at the beginning. So like SP main, something like that. So yeah, let's do that. Let's do stack panel. Oops. We'll do SP for stack panel and then main. Okay. And then we'll just say new stack panel. Okay. And let's actually, because we know that we want to add, let's do an orientation. Let's do an overall orientation of, I guess let's do it horizontal, because I think the default is vertical. Okay. All right. So let's do that. And then, so now if we start adding elements, they're just all going to flow horizontally. So we could do so sp.main.children.add. Let's add what did we have? A combo. So we had we had the PTVs. So let's say we want to select the PTVs combo box first. And then we want to do the combo. So that's a nice thing about IntelliSense, is you can just kind of start typing things. So the structures of interest combo box. Perfect. Okay, so that's the second thing. So, that will be the So on the left would be PTV's combo box, and then to the right of that would be the structures, right? And honestly, what we probably should do is add some labels, right? So let's see, this combo box, and really, a combo box is just it's not very tall or anything, so it's really only like one line. So it's like it's basically a drop down. That's what it is. So instead of doing this horizontally, let's do vertical. And then let's do a stack panel SP PTVs equals new stack panel, and let's add that in. So I hit shift enter, and let's say the orientation is horizontal. That's not what I want. Dot horizontal. Okay. And so let's see. Let's add a label for the PTV's combo box. So let's do SP PTVs dot children dot add, and let's just create this on the fly. So new, we won't do label. I mean, you could do a label, but text block, and let's just add this here. Text equals, what do we want it to say? We want it to say target. Maybe choose target. Okay. And then let's do another one and add in the PTV combo box, because this is vertical. Wait, no, this is horizontal, right? And let's do a margin. Let's do a margin right. And actually, let's do a width on the text box so that it's, and we'll do this on both text box labels so that it's the same. So let's do a width of 125, and we could, always change this later. But so a width, and then let's do a margin. And then this is going to be a thickness, I believe. New thickness, and you can do so it starts left. Well, at least in XML, it's left, up, right, or left, top, right, bottom. I think that's the way that it is. So let's see. Yeah, it starts with the left. So we're going to do left. We want to add margin to it. We want to push the combo box to the right some. So we're going to add some margin to the right. So 0, 0, and then now this is to the right. So let's do 10. Whoop. And then 0. Okay. And we're going to copy this, because let's actually copy. Okay. So we're going to get rid of these actually. Okay. And let's copy all of this, because we're going to do the same thing for, we're going to create another one. Let's do structures of interest. Okay. And so we're going to do the same thing. Choose structure interest. It's a really long. Let's do choose SOI. And let's add a tooltip. So a tooltip is when you hover over it. okay? And this is the message when you hover over it, this is the message that appears. Your structure of interest, i.e. region of interest. I hope that makes sense to the user. Let's do your structure of interest. Which envelops your the necessary IDLs. Okay, so ISODOS lines. Your structure of interest which envelops the necessary IDLs. Okay, so there might be, I don't know, we might need to help users understand what this is. Maybe do this in a better way, but okay, so let's kind of add some lines here. Okay. Okay. All right, so now we have that, and let's do includes. Well, let's do contains. That, I think that makes sense. That makes better sense. The relevant IDLs, and let's just say ISODOS levels. Okay. All right. So your structure of interest, which contains the relevant ISODOS levels, i.e. the 50% and 100%. Let's say all of. Okay. All right. So now we have that, and we need to change this to this. Okay, so we've added that text block, and choose SOI. We've added the same width, the margin, and we've added, we don't want to add this, we want to add the structures of interest. Is it IDs? No, the combo. We want to add this. Okay. Okay. So now we have our main stack panel. Main, we'll say container, okay, because that's basically what these are. Well, this is basically the PTV section container. PTV, we'll say selection container and label. And I'm going to copy this and paste it down here for structure of interest, selection container and label. Okay. Okay, so now we need the, so we've got, let's see. Okay, so now we're going to add, so now we just need to add, let's add a width to this. Let's do 400. I don't know, that might seem kind of wide. Let's do 300, and let's do a horizontal alignment equals horizontal alignment dot left. Okay, and all right. So I think let me let's see. Let me see if I can pull up Word. Well, not Word, but Paint. See if I can try to give you a picture of what I'm thinking. All right, so what I'm thinking is we should have a, well, let's do, can I add a text box? Yeah, okay. So there's a text box, right? So you have select PTV, and then you have, whoop, don't want to do that. So then you have a combo box that you drop down, right? And then you have another one, and then you have this here. Select SOI, okay, and then we're going to have a results section. Basically, oh, we need our button. That's right. So let's put let's put our button somewhere like this. Somewhere like that. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So let's add a width to our combo boxes so they're the same as well. So let's see, where are those? Combo box. Oh shoot, I forgot about our calculation type. Okay. So I guess we need a third combo box. And let's just copy this. And let's say the, sorry, not the combo box. We need the stack panel. So stack panel, SP, we'll just say options, calculation options, and we'll say that's the same. And let's do this. Okay. Calculate. So we don't really need that. Okay. And then let's see what other combo we had. What did we call it? PTV. Oh, we don't have an options. What did we create? Oh, calculation top. Oh, we didn't call it a combo box. Combo box. Let's see if we can rename this. Yeah. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. So now let's see. Okay. Hit control period. What I meant to hit was space, control space. Okay, so now we have the calculation type options. Okay. All right. And oh, we never added the widths to these. Where are they? Okay. Width. Let's just do 100. Well, let's do 125 just to keep it similar. And let me just copy this. Where are those other combos? Yes, they're up here. Combo. Put that there and put that there. Okay, so now we got our combos with the widths. All right, so let's see. So calculation options stack panel. Okay, so, and that's also horizontal. And then, okay, now we need our button. And let's see what width we can give our button. We should give it at least 250. Let's do, well, let's see. I wonder if we need to put it in its own stack panel. I don't think we do. No, that seems kind of silly. Where is this button? Okay, here it is. Let's do horizontal alignment equals dot center, and let's do a width of, let's say 250. I know we have a 10 pixel margin, so let's make it maybe 260. Whoop. And we can always, again, we can always change this. So let's see, do we have access to the border? Do we have access to the corner radius? No, we do not. Okay. All right, we won't go into that. We won't go into that. Okay. All right. So, okay, so we've added our options. Now we want to add the button. So we want to, oh, actually we haven't added any of, so now we want to start adding things to the main, right? So sp main dot children dot add, whoop. Okay, and we want to add in these stack panels. So stack panels PTVs, sp structures of interest, sp calculation options. Now we want to add the button. So button, what did we name that? What's the button? Click, maybe that. Calculate conformity statistics button. Yeah. All right. So, oh, and then we need to add in the results text block. Okay. And we need to, now let's think about the, so now we've got some window stuff. So we're going to add components to the main stack panel. And then these are some window settings. And we want to show the window. Okay, so window dot show dialog. So show dialog, if we hover over it, oh goodness. So that's not fun. I believe show dialog will kind of pause the code until you close the window. I want to say that show is different. Let's see if it will give us any information. And we could Google this, but I think that show dialog basically waits for you to close it before it continues. So, okay, so now what we need to do is we need to wire up the button. Well, we've already wired it up. We need to give it. Okay, so here's our button click event. And essentially what we need to do is we need to go, let's just go up to our original thing. And let's see, we basically just need this. We need this, right? Okay, and well, we need to check for, well, we'll paste this to start, and then we'll come back and we'll add some checks. So we don't need this window.content, but we do want to get conformity statistics. No, we can get rid of that. Display. We'll actually say populate. Populate. Actually, I think this returns a string. Oh, but that's saying it doesn't exist. Statistic. Oh, it's because I changed the name. Okay, so what we want. So we want to populate the results, and I'm kind of going at this a little backwards, but we want to populate the results, and so we want to. Let's see. We have this results text block, and we want to append to it. Okay, and we want to add. Oops. We want to also, well, let's do a string dot format just so you can get used to that. Actually, that would be, okay. So let's say string dot format. So now we have this, and we have our placeholder, and then we'll say a new line, and then see, this should return a string. Oh, it's probably just complaining because of all this. So we have a patient, our 50, oh, and that, oh goodness. I hate when I do that. Let me save it. Where are we? Okay. Why doesn't it like this? Cannot convert type string. Oh, you know what? Duh. Text. We need to add in the text. Okay. So populate the, we'll say append the results. Okay. All right. So, and you know, let's find this. We don't need the patient anymore. So let's copy this. And, you know, honestly, we don't even need this anymore. We don't even need to use this. This is silly. So let's get rid of this. And let's finish this part first. So we have our 50. Let's say we don't need this double. We need this, our 50, which I guess maybe we didn't need to do that. Alright, so we need the plan. We need this to be the structure of interest. We need this to be the, PTV? Oh, you know what? Do we even have it? What did we say? We have a plan, structure set. Oh. We didn't even create the selected structures. Oh, yeah, we did. So target structure, structure of interest. You know what I want to call these? I actually want to call these selected, because that implies that it has to be selected. Okay, so I think I like that better. So let's rename that. And I don't think we're going to be able to rename this. That's okay. Let's just find. The instances of this. Looks like we haven't. Okay. What does this take? Takes these, okay, and then the target structure. So this is going to be the selected target structure. Okay. So it's going to be the selected structure of interest, selected target structure. And this is going to be the plan. All right, so we need to check. So we'll say if, So these should actually be like validations. So let's make something here. Did we copy this? Initiates calculation. Yeah, okay. Let's do a private void. This is going to be similar to our validate. So let's copy this. Where are we? Here we go. Validate selected. Oh, you know what? Actually, we're selecting it for the user. So we know that there has to be a selection. So we're not even going to do that. Okay. And even, for the sake of time. So but we need to set these first. So we're going to say the selected structure of interest equals combo. Let's do combo structure of interest combo box dot selected item. And we actually this needs to be a structure, right? So we need to actually do the, so do we have a get structure? I think we do. We did a body structure and get plan target volume. Did we do a regular structure? We did not. I mean, we could use this. This should actually probably be a more, generic thing. So let's just copy this and paste it. And let's say get structure. Okay. And we'll say structure ID and the structure set. And we'll just, so this probably should have been our generic, right, version. So, because there's no point, if we don't have to be specific, then, it's probably better, especially if you're thinking about like reusability. So let's see. So what did we say? Gets the selected, gets the structure from the structure set with the matching ID. Okay. All right, and this returns a structure. So let's see, what does that say? Yeah, it returns a structure. Okay. Structure, we'll just say with the matching ID. Okay. Now, in our case, did we do a validate structure? Do a validate structure set? Oh yeah, we did. A validate structure exists. So we could do that. But in our case, like, we're pulling the IDs straight from the structure set. So we don't really need to validate that. However, if you're, at some point, there may be a time where you do need to validate. Okay, so let's say get structure, and we know we need the structure set, and we need the structure ID, which is the combo selected structure of interest combo selected item. Okay, and what does this return? This is an object dot toString. Let's try that. Okay. All right, and then this is going to be something similar. So selected target structure combo PTV's combo box dot selected item dot toString. You know, I wonder. Yeah, that should be good. That should be good. Okay, because we gave it IDs, just the string IDs. We didn't give it structures, right? Where is that? Yeah. Yeah, these are just lists of strings. Yeah, okay, that should be fine. All right, so, okay, so we defined this, Now we have our R50 and our 100. And so let's say, let's give the structure name, and let's say the R50. Let's do a new line, and let's do a tab for R50, and we'll give that value, and let's do another tab, and so that will be our second placeholder. And then let's just copy this, and this will be our third placeholder, and instead of that we'll say R100. The other I mean, really you could say CI, right, because it's just a basic CI. Okay, and so we want the structure ID, right? So the selected target structure, that's the structure.id, okay? And then so that's the first placeholder, and then the second placeholder is the R50. So now we want the R50, and then we want the R100, okay? And let's go ahead and give it a new line, okay? That way it'll go down to the next line for the next time that we run it. All right, so oh my gosh, we're at 2 hours. That's just ridiculous. I sure hope if y'all are watching this, I sure hope you're watching it on 2x. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so let's clean up some of this. So we don't really need this. I believe, did we copy our original code? I sure hope we did, but that's okay. We'll just leave that. We don't really need this try catch anymore. Let's just get rid of this. Get rid of that. Okay. And we don't need this anymore. We just deleted that region. Let's just go ahead and get rid of these. Okay. And so now we have our window. Let's call this window design. Or we'll say window elements. Or window, let's call them components. How about that? Okay. We have our PTB combo box. We have our options, calculate type options box, button event, our results text box, our stack. So these are containers. We could do containers. And I'm just going to copy this. Come down here. Paste it, and then just add end in front of it. Okay. That's our containers. We have our window components. Let's do okay. And then we have some window settings, and then we have our show window. Okay. All right. Let's just run through all these, make sure we have notes for everything. Let's see, let's think about, is there anything that we did? Let's see, we gave a selected item. Did we give a selected item for the options? Can't remember. Options, selected items, options dot first. Okay, yeah, that should work. So both, I think, is the default. All right. Oh, we were looking at that. Our 50 plan. We've checked to make sure there's a plan. Selected structure of interest. We're defining one, so we know that once you've selected one, you can't unselect one, which is kind of nice, unless you provide an option, like a blank option in your items. All right, so then we have a results text box text block dot text. All right. I don't think we ever actually used that, or at least we're not using it now anymore. And we've written a lot of stuff. All right. All for this silly, simple example, right? Okay. And the goal of doing all of this is to show you just how messy this can get. Okay. This gets super messy, obviously, right? And you know, this stuff we could copy and paste and all that, but all of the user interface, like the design of it, like none of that can get really reused. And not only that, but it's like there's this idea of, like, you might hear people refer to it as coupling, like how linked things are, right? The idea is that in an ideal world, everything would be decoupled, right? That way you could take away, you know, the different components. Like you have this modular design, and you can take away a part and then put in its place another part, and it could still work, right? But the way that this is, like this, if we took away any of this stuff, this would not like, we can't separate the logic from the user interface. Okay. Now, all of that said, we've got probably, hopefully, a proper working window with only 200 and so lines of code, right? So there's a lot of logic here. Now, obviously, you know, that's the main method, right? We've got over 500 lines of code, you know, but a lot of this is like comments and that sort of thing. So, but you know, that's, at least we could come back through and reread through this and probably get an idea of what's going on. Let's just rename this window containers. Okay, so that way I know it has to do with the window. All right, so window settings, window components. All right. Okay, so this is the general flow. So then we validate structure of interest ID. Oh yeah, so we're validating those. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna pause and try logging in, and let's just see if this works. So give me just a second. Yet another distraction. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I am logged in, and I've already pulled up this area. And so we have this test patient, and we have a test SBRT plan. It's not a real plan, it's just something that we made. And just so that we could, you know, run scripts and that sort of thing. So let's try running it. So click run, and okay. All right, so it says, sorry, something went wrong. So that was our message. And then it provides us with the the message and then the call stack. Okay, and so it's saying that the hand has unsupported extension for cursor, and then it's gonna, okay, so now it shows us the message, the actual exception. Okay, so let's go back. So it has to do with the cursor. So, okay, so that's the button. All right, and okay. All right, so it's not that, so we're not creating a new cursor. So let's try cursors dot hand. And okay, so what is this saying? All right, doesn't exist. Okay, so let's try control dot. Okay, so system windows input. All right, and that makes sense. Okay, so let's try it again. All right, so now we get this. Okay, so now it's blank. All right, and then we get an exception. It says there was a problem while executing the script. Can't set the visibility or call show dialog after a window has closed. Huh. Okay, so the window had already, interesting. Okay, let's try it a different way. Okay, so one thing I just realized, we never actually added the main stack panel to the window. So what if we, can we do that? Window.content. No, is there a children? No, there's not a content. Okay, so we're not adding children, we're just gonna set the content, just like we did with our original script where we just, instead of writing a message box, you could just set the window content to the information. So let's say SP main. Okay, and let's get rid of this. Let's just get rid of that. I guess we'll just use that for like apps and like applications, WPF applications. Okay, so let's try it again. Ah, okay. So as you can tell, like it's not pretty at all, but we have a choose target, choose SOI, calculate, both, so we can choose which ones we want to do. We have our PTVs, we have our external, because we don't have any CI or R50 structures. And then here's our statistics, and there we go. So what happens if we click it again? It just adds it. Okay, what if we do CI? Oh, you know what? We didn't check that. We're not checking to see what that value is. Okay, so let's add that hopefully really quickly. It's really not been quick at all, but that's okay. This is the process. Let's see. Okay, so here's our click event. All right, so let's say, okay, so let's say if, what is it? Options, combo box dot selected item dot to string equals both. Actually, let's do shift enter. And let's do this. There's probably a much simpler way that we could do this, but let's just, we could do like a message and then only write this line once, like down, like outside of this if, but we'll just do it like this. So else if, so if it doesn't equal both, then that means it equals something else. So if it doesn't equal both, so let's do this again. Actually, let's just do all of it again. And do that. And if it equals CI, then let's just comment this out. Don't need that. and we just need the CI. So we need, so new line tab. Can we do that? No, let's just cut that out. So we have the structure name, and then we have the CI. And another thing that we notice is that if we look back, do we still have that open? Let's run it again. Yeah, so we've got like tons of decimal places. Maybe we only want like 3, right? Or 2, right? Maybe for the CI you want 2, and for the R50 maybe you want, well, 2's probably fine. All right, so we could do it one of 2 ways. We could just add in a format of like 2, so like 2 decimal places or whatever. But I'm not confident that that doesn't just pull the first 2 decimal places. Like, in other words, it may just completely disregard rounding. So that's something I'd have to look up. But to get just to be sure, we could, let's see, so R100. So now we don't need this, and we could do math dot round, and we'll say 2. Okay, so we'll just round it to 2. And let's copy this and paste that. Okay, and let's do the same thing for the R50. Math dot round 2. Let's copy that, and well, we don't need this here, but we might as well. All right, and then finally, so we'll do else. We could do an else if, because we know we're going to match, but we could just do an else, right? Because if it's not both and it's not CI, then that means it's R50. So let's copy, actually let's copy, well, no. Yeah, let's copy this one. So we have our R50, we don't need this, and we can actually just get rid of it. And we can get rid of this one. Okay, and then here we do want the R50, so let's delete everything after that. Okay, and we still have our new line. Now we need to change this, because now we just have 0 and 1. Okay, and 0 and 1, so now we can get rid of this. Okay, so we have our math dot round. Okay. All right, so that handles that. There's no way to not have it selected. Now, if you noticed, I don't know if you noticed, but when we run this, we get our button all over here. Now, we had set the horizontal alignment to center. So let's actually do that for the main stack panel. So let's do orientation vertical, and then let's do horizontal alignment dot center. Let's see what that does. That might fix it. Whoop. There we go. Let's add some more margin, and let's do, instead of, what was that? Results, calculation options, results text box. Where was that? Is that up here? Let's do center. Okay. All right, and that might look kind of weird. We'll leave that. We could add like a label that says statistics. Let's just get rid of this. Okay, and we'll just leave that. And let's see, we want, what else were we doing? Oh, we were gonna add margin. So let's add some margin. So, whoops, gosh, I'm clicking all kinds of things. Okay. So we had, let's add some top margin to a couple of these. So we have, actually not to the text block. Let's not do that. Let's do it to the stack panel. And let's just copy this. Okay. And let's just do 10. Okay. And let's do that. And let's find each of the stack panels. Okay. Let's try it again. Ooh. Does not like something. I bet we have a squiggly. Yes, we do. Oh, goodness. Does not like that. Oh, that's what it was. Okay. All right. Let's try it again. Okay, now we just need some for the button, but it's still working. So that's good. All right, and then, so for the button, let's add, what was that button? Probably up here. Here's the button. Let's just add that there. Okay. And this results text block. Let's add margin on that. Okay. And let's make this center because everything else is center. So let's just see what that looks like. That's not terrible. Let's make sure we save that. Did the main, that should be centered. Oh, I bet it's because of the width that we gave it. What did we, let's get rid of this. Okay, let's try that again. There we go, that's not bad. And let's do, if we just do the CI, now we get the CI. And if we just do the R50, we get the R50. Perfect. That's awesome. Okay, well, we could add like a little print button or whatever. Let's just test something really quickly. I'm not going to actually create this structure. I just want to create a structure with the label just to see if it will pick it up. CI PTV 30-70, and we'll just say a control. Doesn't really matter. And I'm just going to actually copy the body into it. Okay. And I just want to see now if it picks it up. It does. And it calculates. That's awesome. Okay. All right. So with that, we have a working script that will allow a user to select the target, select the structure of interest that you want to calculate the volume of, and if we hover over it, we get that. That's awesome. And we could, instead of both, like, that's like if this is the first time you've ever run it, we could add a tooltip to this, but if this was the first time you'd run it, like maybe you don't know what both is referring to, right? So maybe it should say CI and R50, or something like that, or maybe like all, right? Because ideally we would also have like the gradient index and paddock CI, that sort of thing. And then we'd also like to have the R50, you know, and even the CI, what the acceptable ranges are based on your PTV volume, right? So I think that would actually be the next step, that you would actually add those things in there. So anyway, I know that this was an extremely long video, and I apologize for that. However, I think we went through a lot, and not only that, but we did it from just like memory, right? And just trying to see like, okay, these are some of the components of what a user interface will use, like in a WPF app, right? We're still going to use stack panels, we're still going to use combo boxes, we're still going to use text blocks, like we're going to use all those same things. So it's to be honest with you, it's only going to get easier from this point with respect to designing a user interface, because from now on we're not going to be doing this. I wanted to do this to show you, one, that we could, and two, like if you've seen the DVH lookup script, right, from the example scripts that that Varian has, then you if you've looked at the code in it, you're aware, like you're familiar with this, like creating a stack panel, creating a button, subscribing to an event. Like that's what that does, right? And it's like the simplest version that it could be, but it's to be honest with you, it's very complicated, because you have to just sit and read through everything that it's doing, right? So this would not be a very good example of object-oriented programming. Maybe parts of it, right? Because we've tried to create, we've tried to abstract a lot of the logic, but there's still so much, right? Like we could probably abstract, like take this and put it into a method that's like create window, right? Because ultimately all of this stays the same, and then really we just populate the data and with this stuff, right? And then we've created the UI here, and then we've given it some like basic settings, and then all we do is we just assign its content, right? So we gather some data, we fill the window components with that data, and then we click a button, and that's ultimately all we're doing. So this is a lot for just that, right? And ideally we would come through and we would, add more comments and that sort of thing. But, honestly, part of it is if you name things as clearly as you can in the moment, then comments help. But a lot of times, like if you read through some of our comments, right? Like this says, get PTV IDs. Well, it gets a list of structures that begin with PTV, right? So that is some more information, because it says that they begin with the PTV. But like a lot of our comments just basically just restate what we just did, right? Like calculate R50. This says calculate the R50. So if we name things, properly, or not properly, but well, if we name things thoughtfully, I should say, then we don't have to rely on comments as much, right? But if we just said calculate, like we don't know what that means. And then, the other thing is like we added our notes here. So now when we hover over, like if I come in and if you've written this and I come in and I'm reading through it and I'm like, well, what does this do? Oh, okay. It calculates the ratio of the 50% isodose line to the target volume. Okay. That's good. That's good to know. Right. So I can assume what it means, but the fact that we've added a lot of these different things, that really helps. So anyway, that's enough of me rambling. So I have actually already created the objects, and like I've rewritten, because we've used a basic calculation in the past to calculate the ideal range of R50 and CI and that sort of thing based on the RTOG. I think it's like 0915. And I think a lot of places you may even already have a script that will do that. But another common one is just to use a spreadsheet, right? Because it's just basic interpolation. But what we're going to do is we're going to create a class of objects that will be reusable so that we can calculate the various different conformity indexes or indices in like other applications, right? So we're gonna kind of focus more on that. And I think I completed it the other day. I'll have to read back through it, but I haven't made a video on it or anything yet. So we'll probably code it together, or maybe if it's not useful, I think it will be because it's probably our first like classes that we'll create together. So it'll have like different properties and stuff. So I'll go through we'll either just read through it and talk about it, or we'll actually code it. I don't know. I'm probably let me know if it's not beneficial for you to watch me code. Then I'm happy to code what I want to go over, and then more so just talk about it and read through it. Like maybe that would be faster, and maybe you'd get more from that. I don't know. So yeah, let me know. And until then, I hope this was helpful, and I hope you have a great night.